Hello and welcome to the special webcast on the 2020 Census and the National Partnership Program. My name is Raul Cisneros and I'm the Director of National Partnerships. This is the first in a series of webcasts we plan to conduct on various partnership topics. Joining me here are Stephen Buckner, the Acting Associate Director for Communications, who will talk about the work that we do here at the U.S. Census Bureau. Also joining me is Al Fontenot, the Associate Director for Decennial Programs, who will talk about the 2020 Census operation. And the other presenter will be Lorena Molina Irizarry, who is Deputy in the Office of National Partnerships, who will talk about our partnership website. And I will present on the National Partnership Program. And following our presentations, we will open it up for questions. So you can write to us at census.partners@census.gov. And now I'm pleased to introduce Stephen Buckner.
Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Happy afternoon. Really excited to be here. The 2020 Census is less than 2 years away. And while the Census Bureau has been planning this since the last count, we also realize we can't do that alone. And we need your help. We need you to help join us in creating awareness about the importance and the benefits of the 2020 Census. We need you to help us talk about why a complete and accurate count can help your community, and that timely and accurate data are more important than ever before. While you'll be learning a lot about the 2020 Census during this presentation by Al and others, and how you can help directly with the 2020 Census, I want to take a brief moment and talk about the work that we do here at the Census Bureau those other 9 years. While most people realize we do measure the population, a lot of people don't realize we also measure our economy. So just today, a little news item here, we actually released our new population estimates for all cities and towns across the country. This reveals where the fastest growing areas are over the last year, and they help elected officials, business, community organizations understand some of the changes going on in their communities and how they can actually make decisions based on those growth numbers. In case you were wondering, the fastest growing city was actually in Texas. That's Frisco. So the Census Bureau conducts about 130 annual surveys on key social, economic, and housing characteristic data. This also includes key economic indicators like the unemployment rate, retail sales, home construction, and many, many more. All of these data are used to help measure our economy. And it really gives a lot of local leaders and businesses an understanding as a snapshot for the nation, but also down to the county level. In fact, currently, we have an economic census that's underway right now with over 4 million businesses responding to that. The census is actually used to produce really key numbers and most of the source data used to calculate our GDP. Businesses are actually asked to respond by June 12th, so that deadline is coming up. Also, another key program that most of you probably are aware of is our American Community Survey. This is the nation's largest household survey, goes to about 3.5 million addresses every year, and produces just a wealth of information about our socioeconomic health in this country and how populations are changing down to very low levels of geography. The data it produces includes everything from educational attainment to commute to work, median housing values, health insurance coverage, and so much more. It really does allow our decision makers to understand what's going on in their communities. These data are also key because they help distribute about $675 billion back to state and local governments every single year. So those numbers are really key to understanding those changes, but also directing a lot of resources to those local areas. In addition, as you can see, there's a lot more to the Census Bureau than just the population count that we do as mandated by the Constitution and that we take very seriously, which is why we're here today. But to discuss, we want to make sure we can discuss how to partner with us to get a complete and accurate count in the 2020 Census. And we certainly look forward to answering all of your questions throughout this webinar about the 2020 Census and how you might be able to participate and partner with us. At this time, I'm going to kick it over to Al and let him talk a little bit more about the 2020 Census, some of the operations, the timeline, and how we can get you to give us a hand and help in the 2020 Census.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for tuning in. I'm excited to tell you about the census and the things we've been doing to prepare for the 2020 Census. Every 10 years, the U.S. Census Bureau conducts a census to determine the number of people living in the United States. The census is conducted in years ending in 0. The primary purpose of the census is to apportion representation, that is, the number of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives among the states as mandated by Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution. There are many other important uses of census data that include drawing congressional and state legislative districts, school districts, and voting precincts, distributing more than $675 billion a year in funding to states and local communities, informing the decisions that governments make every day, and providing businesses and nonprofits data to help them make good decisions about their work. The census is complex, and we've been planning it for years, and each decade it gets harder. We have a series of challenges in 2020. Response rates for surveys and censuses all over the world are declining. People are concerned about sharing information, and they don't trust the government like they used to. Households are more complex, diverse, and dynamic. Blended families may include children who have 2 primary residences. Other households may include more than one family or multiple generations. And the United States continues to be a highly mobile nation, as about 15% of the population moves in a given year. Technology also complicates our job. For example, many people use cell phones now, which are more difficult for us to track down. And more households speak languages other than English. But regardless of modern-day societal changes, our goal does not change: to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place. At its simplest, this is what the decennial census is all about. Now I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about how we do the census. First, we build the address list. This includes every address in the country, and it forms the basis of the census. Then we motivate people to respond. This is one of the places where you can be very important for us. People need to know how important their response to the census is, and we're counting on you to help us get the word out. Self-response is now easier than ever. People can use the internet or the telephone or a paper questionnaire. They can also respond in 12 languages in addition to English via the internet and via the telephone. Nevertheless, some people will not respond, so we follow up with them often by knocking on their door. You can help us here too by encouraging the people you reach to cooperate with us if we come to their house or apartment. And finally, we tabulate and release the census results, first to the president and then to the country. Let me stress that throughout this process, we protect the confidentiality of the data we collect, and we only use that data for statistical purposes. This is the law, Title 13 of the U.S. Code, and it's woven into the ethical framework that defines the Census Bureau. We all stand behind our pledge to protect our respondent data at the Census Bureau and at the Department of Commerce, and we won't share your answers with any other agencies. This is our timeline, and we're now less than 2 years away from Census Day. We're currently conducting the 2018 end-to-end census test, and I'm happy to report that it's going really well. Our new systems and operations, which leverage technology to make us more efficient, are all working well. Almost 50% of the people have responded, which is great for a test, and 60% of those are using the internet, just as we had hoped. We're operating and opening our offices for the 2020 census as we speak. Our 6 regional census centers are currently up and running in Los Angeles, Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and New York. You'll see grand openings for each of these offices later this summer. We're also leasing space for the 40 area offices we will need in early 2019, and the additional 208 will be opening later that year. All of these smaller offices will be driving our recruiting effort and managing our field workers. We need to hire 500,000 temporary workers. With a strong economy and low unemployment rate, this will be a big challenge for us. Maybe you can help us here too. I cannot emphasize how important the Communications and Partnership Program is to the 2020 census. The Integrated Partnership and Communications Operation communicates the importance of participating in the 2020 census to the entire population of the 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the island areas. The goal is to engage and motivate people to self-respond. First by the internet, telephone, or by sending in a paper questionnaire. Then for those who won't respond, by cooperating with us when we come to their home. The partnership program is central to this mission. You can help us by carrying the message to everyone you reach that responding to the census is important and safe. Raul is going to have more to say about this, but I want to emphasize that we need you. We'll also have an amazing communication campaign in many languages other than English that you'll see in every major media outlet and through social and digital media. Please note on this slide the many ways you can connect with us and stay up to date about the 2020 census. Thank you so much for your interest in the 2020 census. Raul?
Thank you, Stephen and Al, for your presentations. And again, just to remind you that you can submit questions to census.partners@census.gov. Now I'm going to talk about the National Partnership Program. So the 2020 census, the partnership program will complement a robust communications and advertising campaign in multiple languages. As Al said, partners serve as trusted voices. Partners will also can help to reach everyone. But they can also be especially important in reaching hard to count and hard to reach communities. For the 2010 census, there were more than 257,000 partners from Fortune 500 companies to local chambers of commerce, churches, and governments at all levels. The partnership program was an integral part and a very important part of the 2010 campaign. About 1,000 partners in 2010 were national partners. For the 2020 census partnership program, there will be two components: the National Partnership Program and the Community Partnership Engagement Program, or CPEP. The National Partnership Program focuses on engagement with national level organizations in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. The CPEP consists of coordination with state complete count commissions, complete count committees, and state and local organizations in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. The state complete count commissions and local complete count committees are managed and operated by the state and localities and supported by the CPEP. Partners should plan to coincide their informational and communications activities for their audiences with the census awareness and motivation phases, which start in 2020. Just as it was for the 2010 census, national partners can assist in multiple ways. First and foremost, partners can encourage their employees, audiences, and customers to respond to the census. Partners can also host workshops where organizations can come together to discuss challenges and make sure everyone responds to the census and devise solutions on how to engage the public to participate. And Lorena will talk a little bit more about these workshops. Partners can also help to promote recruitment. As Al said, we're going to hire 500,000 people, and we expect to recruit about 2.5 million people. The census is the largest domestic mobilization undertaken by the federal government. Partners can also use social media channels and platforms to support the census. They can place drop-in articles in their publication, both online and in hard copy formats. And we will provide messaging for partners to use. Partners can also co-brand materials with theirs and our logo for promotional purposes. And partners can also offer speaking and presentation opportunities to Census Bureau staff where they can come and present at their conferences. This is particularly helpful next year in 2019. National partners can also use the tools and messages and information that we will create to increase the public's knowledge about the 2020 census and encourage their response. They can also provide information via traditional and new channels of communication, and we can work with them to devise creative solutions. And partners can also continue to work with us beyond the 2020 census and to promote and talk about our other surveys and programs as Steve had described earlier. So, and I'd like to also add that if a national partner wants to have a local effort, we will connect them with the Community Partnership Engagement Program, or CPEP, so they can have that activity at the local level. So this concludes my presentation. Again, happy to take your questions, and you can write to us at census.partners@census.gov. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lorena Molina Irizarry, who will demonstrate our partner website. Lorena.
Thanks, Raul, and thanks to everyone for joining us on this webcast. As you've heard today, partners are critical to not just the success of all census surveys, but especially for the 2020 count. We're going to show you the many useful resources and materials to engage your stakeholders and audiences in preparation for 2020, like resources to develop messaging, to craft your outreach efforts, put together census events, get access to data tools, sign up to get advice from our very own data trainers, and maybe even convene a group or a committee to get out the count and collaborate with other partners. As Raul mentioned, you can help increase participation and raise awareness to ensure that all your constituents, customers, and stakeholders are represented in the vital work that we do as we ramp up to the 2020 census. From corporations to policymakers, foundations, nonprofits, you name it, we work across all sectors and industries. I'm going to show you just a few simple ways you can start engaging with us with a shared mission to take action. Throughout this website, we've outlined a few simple ways you can start, even if you only have a few minutes. First off, I invite you to join our mailing list to keep abreast of not only 2020 efforts underway, but you can also sign up to get early updates and resources via email. You can make a difference whether you just have a moment to spare or you can commit to a long-term sustained effort. We have developed tools and best practices to help you engage your stakeholders to not only increase awareness overall, but especially around messaging that helps educate the public. You can host or sponsor a census-related event, maybe in the form of a census solution workshop, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. We'll be exploring other ways to collaborate. Please know that throughout this quick demo, you can share your thoughts and send questions to our mailbox, which we'll be addressing in the form of a Q&A at the end of this presentation. And that email again is census.partners@census.gov. So let's get started. Here we provide you a quick refresher on the importance of census, links and information about all our surveys and programs, as well as an opportunity to explore our data by visiting our data website, which is data.census.gov. And of course, you can join in to partner and spread the word about the importance of participating. As you've heard today, conducting a census is an important and massive undertaking that we can only accomplish with your support. So please join us. I invite you to sign up via this web form. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your interest in collaborating with us as we approach 2020. It will also help us learn and better understand your needs as together we help develop these opportunities for partnering. All right, so let's go over some of the ways you can start getting engaged today. You can start by following us on our social media channels to stay up to date with Census Bureau news and share our content. You can also share or download our data products. We have visualizations and infographics to show the value and wealth of our data. You can connect with one of our data experts across the nation, get tailored workshops and presentations, or reach out to our partner networks. We have state data centers across all states, island areas, and Puerto Rico. These are the Census Bureau's longest and most successful partnerships, created to make data available locally. They organize and coordinate with statewide networks through their affiliates. These networks are official sources of demographic and socioeconomic statistics. You can also get in touch with our Census Information Centers, which provide support to local communities, access to training and technical assistance on census data for research, planning, decision-making in your community. You can also check out our educational resources and participating training opportunities. Let us show you how to find and use our data. We provide webinars, video tutorials, and even classroom training. You can click here to check out our upcoming training opportunities. If you can commit a little bit more time, we invite you to engage your stakeholders through meaningful collaborations, such as hosting or attending a census solution workshop, which is a great way to forge new cross-sector collaborations and together identify solutions to engage the public and other partners. We'll talk a little bit more about these workshops in a second. You can also join the Opportunity Project, which brings together government, technologists, and community advocates to create digital tools that help strengthen economic opportunity by leveraging the power of open data. And you can even invite a census expert to your next event, board meeting, or conference. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the resources available. We have assembled an audience outreach toolkit with best practices and recommendations on how to craft and deliver messaging to engage diverse communities in an effort to increase participation. Consider using this resource to inform your outreach strategies and plans for getting out the count, learn about some of the barriers for participation and insights that we've gathered about what works to reach some of the hardest to count populations. This is a great resource to tailor your strategies as well as provide specific tips and tactics to connect with individuals who might be undecided about responding to the census or may not understand the importance. So next, I'd like to talk to you about the Census Solution Workshop. These idea generation or ideation workshops bring together diverse people and organizations to solve challenges such as reaching the hard to count or addressing the digital divide. It takes participants through a series of creative problem-solving exercises with an approach that is customized to the needs of real people that you're trying to reach. This highly engaging and innovative format can help address some of the toughest challenges we face, and it helps partners better understand their audiences, to generate tailor-made solutions, and to forge new public-private partnerships. The innovative ideas generated in these workshops lead to real actionable commitments. It helps individuals understand how census impacts their lives and provides them with opportunities for civic action. We have pilot tested these engagements across the country in places like LA, Kentucky, Pittsburgh, Boston, the Bay Area, just to name a few. And we've gathered all of those insights and lessons learned to develop a step-by-step guide in a form of an event planning toolkit. We provide sample agendas, suggested activities, and even an event planning checklist. You can reach out to learn more about running this style of workshop and get a copy of the toolkit by signing up via the web form. So in order for you to better understand the demographic composition and characteristics of the communities that you serve, we also provide you with these two mapping tools, the Response Outreach Area Mapper, or ROAM, and the Census Engagement Navigator. These interactive applications make it easier to identify hard-to-count areas and provide a socioeconomic and demographic profile of the neighborhoods across the country. It allows community leaders, federal, state, and local governments, policymakers, and partners to identify areas that may need more engagement in order to increase response rates. You can use this information to create tailored communication and outreach campaigns as you plan ahead for resources in order to drive your efforts to get out the count. Well, that said, we invite you to learn more about the 2020 census and why it is important. Counting an increasingly diverse and growing population is a massive undertaking, as you've heard today. Ultimately, the success of the census depends on everyone's participation. You can join us by spreading the word, by sharing some of this content. Through social media, you can embed or download these thumbnails with quick facts about the importance of being counted. You are the trusted voice to help address our most pressing challenges. I also want to bring your attention to the bottom of the page, where we provide a high-level timeline for planning your awareness, education, and outreach efforts from now to 2020. So what can you do now? You can stay informed on how we're planning to achieve a complete and accurate count by signing up to get the latest news and resources related to 2020. You can download and share this Census One infographic right here by clicking on this link. It's a 2-pager fact sheet. And you can start also talking about the 2020 census at your next board meeting via your newsletters, blogs, and/or websites, and by sharing why census is important to you. If you're committed to getting out the count, I encourage you and your organization to become part of our efforts. You can form a team to help plan and support outreach campaigns to drive participation through a complete count committee. A complete count committee is a volunteer committee established by tribal, state, and local governments, community and civic leaders, and businesses to increase awareness and motivate residents in your communities to respond. And finally, tune in to our quarterly program management reviews for updates on plans, tests, schedules, and strategies to deliver a successful and cost-effective 2020 census. So join us and sign up today. We look forward to collaborating with you, and help us build a partnership experience by sharing your interests and providing feedback to census.partners@census.gov. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Raul so we can take some questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Lorena and Al and Stephen, for your presentations. And now it's our question and answer portion of our webcast. And and it looks like we have one question that we received already. So, and the question is, in what languages will the census be available? So,
I'll take that one, Riley.
Okay. Great.
Our online response form will be available in English and 12 non-English languages. Those are Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, Polish, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Japanese. In our telephone questionnaire assistance centers, we have trained telephone answering staff who can respond and will be available to answer in any one of those languages also. In addition, we will have a total of 59 non-English languages available in guides to help you fill out the census and on our videos.
Great. Thank you very much, Al. So next question is, can you tell me about the communications contract and campaign? So Steve, I think that's one that you can
Sure,
answer.
thanks, Raul. I'll try to answer that, give you sort of an overview. This will actually be our third time that we've used a communications contract, a paid advertising program in the census. We first started back in 2000, where we were expecting a 3-decade decline in response rates. And as a result of some of the paid advertising as well as the partnership efforts on the ground, we were able to halt that 3-decade decline and actually raise response rates to 65%. And then again in 2010, we were expecting about a 61% response rate. We took a lot of lessons learned from the first time we had done the campaign. We integrated a lot more components with our partnership program, a statistics in schools program, special events, a lot of public relations activities. And with that, we were really able to continue to increase that response rate. So we've had a lot of successes. This campaign is going to be dramatically different though. The world is different. If you think back to 2010, we spent about 8% of our media budget on digital media. Today, those numbers in most private sector advertising campaigns are reaching 50%. So the media allocation rates may be different this time around, but also realizing we have a very difficult challenge here. We have to reach every single person living in the United States. So that takes a very robust communications program built on research. We just actually wrapped up our census barriers, attitudes, and mindset survey study, where we surveyed 50,000 individuals, quantitative piece. We had about a 38% response rate, which is really, really good. That gives us about 4 times the number of responses we had to similar questions that we asked in the 2010 census. We also then took that and had 42 qualitative focus groups around the country, working within a lot of the minority and ethnic communities to get at some of their understandings of what the census is and whether or not they would participate. And right now, we're going through that data to start looking at it and then formulating some ideas about some of the messaging and the creative platform that we're going to have for 2020. So we're really at the start of that, but research will be at the basis of everything that we do. I will say that it will be a massive effort from a paid component, but we're also going to be hopefully in every single school across the country. We'll have a very large partnership program that will be augmenting and supplementing some of the work we're doing on the paid side. So we're going to be up to about 1,500 partnership specialists across the country. We're hiring right now. I think Al mentioned that in some of the local areas. And then at the beginning of the fiscal year, thanks to the support of the Secretary of Commerce to get some communications money, additional money for us, we're going to be hiring a vast array of partnership people on the ground to work with our regional offices. And that's really where a lot of the grassroots efforts takes place. We'll be dealing with faith-based leaders, community leaders, public sector officials. I know that we've reached out to every single state already about forming a complete count committee. So if you want to check with your states, wherever you're based, you'll probably find out there are some efforts underway. I know that there are a couple formed already. But in terms of the overall contract, we're sort of building that out right now from the research on. We'll have the creative messaging and the overall platform probably by early of 2019. One of the key things that we have to make sure we make is the media upfront buy. That takes place in May of 2019, and that's where advertisers will commit to a certain amount of inventory within the different media channels. You get premier placement, and you also get it at a discount. So we'll be doing a significant media buy as part of that upfront. So a lot of things going on. We are going to be talking a lot about the communications contract in each of our PMRs moving forward, as well as in our advisory committee meetings that we stream to the public. So I encourage you to sort of participate in that and keep an eye out for what's going on. But we're really excited about the possibilities of what we can do for the 2020 census.
Great, thank you very much, Stephen. So how, next question, how does an organization become a partner now? Well, that's really easy. As Lorena described, you can visit our partner website, census.gov/partners, and there is a nice big button that says Join Us. And you can click on that button and then become a partner. We'll fill out some information, and then we will receive it and reach out to you and discuss opportunities to partner with us going forward. So,
and I think, Raul, one of the things you had mentioned too, if you're a local organization, perhaps participating in not a national organization, we do have a good partnership core working out of each one of the regional offices right now, and have probably started organizing within your community. So if you do want to do that, if you want to reach out via this email or contact one of the regional offices, their contact information is on our website. You could hook up with one of our partnership specialists. They're actively working to build relationships right now.
Great. Okay, so let's see what the next question is, and is how will the Census Bureau capture the different ethnicities of people, even when there isn't a box to check that lists their particular ethnicity, i.e. Portuguese?
I'll take that.
Okay, great.
We have a blank box after every racial category that enables people to fill in their particular ethnicity. They also have the opportunity, there are examples that we put to give them a lead of how they can fill those in. So no matter what ethnicity they have, they'll be able to write it in, and we'll capture it when we tabulate the census data.
Okay, great. Thank you, Al. Okay, so let's see the next question that we have. It says, this one's about confidentiality.
I'll take that again.
Okay, so the question is, how will you assure a person's response that the census will be confidential?
As I said in my opening remarks, the federal law, Title 13 of the U.S. Code, protects the confidentiality of any information that is provided to the Census Bureau. We cannot disclose your personal information to any other federal, state, or local government entity, law enforcement, or anyone outside of the Census Bureau. Your data can only be used for statistical purposes to produce statistics on our nation. Now, individuals within the Census Bureau are also sworn by an oath to protect respondents' data. If we violate that, we're subject to 5 years in prison and $250,000 in fine, and we're sworn to keep that secret for life.
Great. Thank you very much, Al. Okay, so let's see what the next question is. When do partners need to start communicating with their audiences? So Lorena, why don't you help me with that answer?
Sure, I'll be glad to address that. So as we provided in our website, we have a very high-level timeline that will show you a planning phase through now to 2020. Right now, partners can start collaborating with us and with each other to amplify messages and show the value of participating in the census. And why is it important? Businesses, industry, nonprofits, you name it, they all use our data and they understand why it is important. So as a partner, you can communicate and amplify that message just to make sure that folks are understanding how it impacts their lives. We have a ton of events happening across the nation. There's a ton of collaboration opportunities, and also share contents and stories to actually be able to impact those that really do not understand necessarily or do not see a tie-in with how it impacts their day-to-day lives. Data is extremely important, and we know that all partners and all organizations utilize the data. If you go to our website, please take a look at our planning timeline, from planning to education and then promotion, and of course the last step, which is activation, which definitely should be in line with our communication campaign as we ramp up to 2020, closer to Census Day.
Okay. Thank you, Lorena. So the next question that we have is, I understand that children between 0 and 5 years are undercounted. What are other communities we should be focusing on?
Okay, I can start.
All right.
So maybe think about it in two ways. One, there's an operational side to making sure we reach everybody, and Al and his team have been working very hard to research new ways and operations to deliver the questionnaires in the format that people need to be able to actually respond to it. And so they've been working on the instruments, they've been working on our telephone assistance area, so trying to get at the reasons people need. So there's a lot of operational side that lead to helping people get counted. But when you think about people getting missed or not counting within a census, there's a couple key variables that track or correlate very heavily to somebody maybe not participating and then would go into our non-response follow-up efforts. Those are certainly tied to educational levels. So those that have not graduated high school or only have a high school degree are less likely to self-respond. Those individuals that don't have high levels of income, that are in the poor area, certainly are less likely to respond. Linguistic isolation, people that speak languages other than English are more frequently missed in a census. And one that a lot of people don't realize is those that rent versus own their home also contribute to some of those factors of being undercounted. So when you take a look at that, those are some of the key things that we look for as we're trying to develop our communications activities to not only tailor our messages to those communities, but also to find other tactics that can actually reach them, whether it be media or through partnership efforts. These groups that we try to work with are really at the core to the hard-to-count populations that the partnership program at the grassroots level is designed to try to reach. To work with partners like yourselves to go out and talk to these communities, because it's going to be trusted about what you say more so than the federal government. We are at a time where we continue to have a mistrust in government, so we want to make sure that you can deliver some of these messages on our behalf to make sure that they understand that you too understand the data is confidential, that we're not going to use it for any other purpose, and that the data actually help your local communities in terms of the challenges they're seeing every year.
If I may
Al?
supplement that, Stephen, thank you. Other areas that we focus on are language isolated blocks in the community, places where a language other than English is spoken at home. That's one of the reasons we do 59 languages, and the information that explains how you do the census, explains why the census is important to your personal community, and encourages people who speak a language other than English at home to participate in the census. Raul mentioned the community partnership program. One of the things that our partnership people in the field do is reach out to those communities. We consciously hire partnership specialists who have language skills in languages other than English, who live in those communities, who can communicate effectively with their neighbors and the people in those communities to reach out to encourage them to participate in the census. Also, on the children, 0 to 5, one of the things we have done is put a training program in place for our field representatives that when they go knock on the doors, they remember to encourage people, are there any children in the house that you may have omitted in your count? Did you leave out a grandchild that lives with you? Or a foster child that lives with you, or a child that's in custody. So we focused very much on making sure every place we contact the residents, we reach out to them about children.
Thank you very much, Al. So the next question that we have is, please talk about timeline regarding outreach, education, and awareness, and get out the vote, the count rather, activities, excuse me.
Well, I can try to give it a timeline based on some of the campaign and the contract stuff, but everybody else can sort of fill in. So right now I talked about a lot of the research we're doing, and related to the last question, we have a couple tools, mapping tools that we've put out that really are transparent in terms of where our low response likely to be. They're based on our planning database, which is something our partners in past censuses have used to try to guide their strategies. So take a look at those two tools to really help guide things, because it allows you to go into different communities at a high level or down to a really micro level to understand the different parts of the communities that you might need to reach. But in terms of a time frame, right now, partnership is trying to get the complete count committees established. So that's certainly right now, we sort of call this early awareness. I think that what we need to do is, as we build this infrastructure around our partnership program, around the communications contract, it's really about trying to make sure there's factual content out there about the census. Let's face it, there's a lot of information out there now on our digital channels that just are not truthful or honest about the census and other topics. We need to make sure, and we need your help to sort of normalize some of that content. We need you putting out content that is actually factual based about the census, that we won't share personal information with law enforcement agencies, because those are types of things that others will use to try to perhaps not allow for an accurate count to take place. So that's some of the stuff we can do right now during this early awareness phase. But in terms of where we're going, Al talked about some of the offices opening. We're bringing on our partnership staff early in the fiscal year of 19, so that's this October. So you'll start to see this groundswell of us starting to participate in events and parades and community events, speaking at town halls and county board meetings. We'll also be doing a lot of events to raise awareness. But in terms of the campaign, we're going to start advertising towards the latter part of 2019 to really start pushing in about the importance. And this will create the sort of the air cover, the mass awareness campaign about the importance of the census and why people should participate. That will start transitioning as we get closer to the enumeration, the actual count. So once the online response option opens up and the mail starts going out, we'll transition into sort of a motivation phase, really driving down those messages to connect with the individuals individually about why it's important for them to participate and the benefits of participating in the census. And so that will continue to go on during that self-response phase from early March, probably through the end of April, beginning of May. But unlike previous censuses where we would have to cut our self-response rates because it was only a paper-based operation and then go to responding to households that have not actually filled out the form, we'll be able to continue doing both those operations at the same time. So the census now has the ability, as perhaps somebody's a little late responding, self-responding. Just because we've started non-response follow-up doesn't mean you still don't have time. And one of the messages that may be very powerful this time around is, if you don't want somebody coming to your door, fill out the form. So that sort of gives you an idea of what we'll be doing between now, starting in January, really kicking off a lot of the communications contract and paid media standpoint, and then moving through some of the operational time windows. I did not talk about some of the recruiting efforts. I'm going to kick that over to Al to sort of talk about that, because that's one of the biggest challenges we're going to have, and that's really going to start in 2019. So Al?
Now, let me go back a little bit and talk about the fact that we've had 43 partnership specialists out working since 2017, helping establish interest in establishing complete count committees. Right now we have 48 states that either have complete count committees already started, have started forming their complete count committees, or have signed up an interest to form their complete count committees. We are currently hiring another 70 partnership specialists between now and October to assist in that effort, and then ramping up toward a high of over 1,000 in early 2019, calendar 2019. We really need you to think about the fact that state complete count committees are not the only way to reach out to people. Local complete count committees, where trust is more with local government than with state government, or community organizations where the trust is more with those local community organizations, are very effective complete count committee setups. We are also, as Stephen mentioned, starting to ramp up our recruiting efforts. We have found that with 4% unemployment, while that's a great thing right now, it makes our job very difficult to hire 500,000 people to go out and knock on doors in a short-term operation for the census. So we're starting to put in place a number of ways to attract people, to get people interested in advance, but that's a place we really need your help.
Right, thank you very much.
And actually, real quick, just to add to that, I think it's really important to think about the collaboration opportunities that exist. We all have a vested interest in a complete and accurate count, and partners have a vested interest as well. So thinking about how we can work together from partner to actually think about solutions and think about ways to engaging the community together. So I think that's also a very important key point around working together. And the Census Solution Workshops are a great way to do that.
Great. Okay, so our next question is, with this being the first online census, will you be collecting any other data beyond what people will put in themselves? Example, IP address, cookies, browser information, etc.
We will not be collecting your IP address, cookies, or browser information when we collect our information on the census.
Okay, great. So, so that will be the last question. So I want to thank you for joining us for this webcast. Again, if you would like more information about the partnership program, please visit census.gov/partners, where you can also, again, sign up to become a Census partner. And again, just to remind you of our email address, if you have any questions or would like to contact us, please reach us at census.partners@census.gov. And again, thank you very much for joining us today.